So I really haven't had time to think about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Um, so in Las Vegas, some rich guy targeted country and western venue, country and western fans. And then the morning I was convicted by basically a whole bunch of country and western listeners. I'll bet you every single one of them. And I have to remember if I have a new trial or an appeal to insist that there's no country and western listeners on my jury. Because it's becoming apparent that I was basically convicted. Because I would bet you if I asked every single person on my jury, do you like country and western? They'd say yes. So was the jury tainted? Well, we'll never know. We never asked them if they were country and western listeners. And except for the black guy, I would bet that most, if not all, the rest were country and western listeners. And is that what we're looking at now? I mean, is that what we're seeing? I mean, I don't really know for sure, but actually a couple weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, I don't know, I don't remember, but recently, I mean, I knew about maybe it was just the other day when I heard about this guy shooting 12 people in a country western themed bar. It's like, okay, does that guy who killed all those people, does he know something I don't know? You know, he's a soldier, and I hate to say that a guy who would kill 12 people in a bar, no matter how misguided, knows something I don't, that he sees country and western music listeners as, you know, am I missing something? Are country and western music listeners like very fascist Trump supporters? Are they the white nationalists? You know, superior race, all that bullshit? I can tell you this, that at my trial, there was a very pretty girl that we left on the jury who became jury foreman and definitely talked everybody else on the jury into voting unanimously to convict me. And I mean, this is a weird thing to say, but if I get if I let my lawyer pick the jury, and I let him do the questioning, and that turned out to be a big mistake, because he definitely was not nearly vigilant enough. I will never allow, I guess what it comes down to is beautiful white people to certainly lead the jury, or to even be on the jury. You know, I'm starting to think that ugly people are the only people who I might be able to trust. In Lexington, Kentucky, probably can't, like I've said before, I think out of the 24 people they had that day for jury duty, I couldn't find it. I mean, maybe the black guy, maybe. But you know, I lived right next door to a black guy in the last apartment that I rented. Or no, the one before the last one, because The last one was out in Russell, Kentucky, which is Ashland, Kentucky, which I understand country people, okay? I lived out there for 2004, 2011, so like 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. And I lived in Houston, and I understand, and I own a farm, and well, I've sold it, but technically on paper I still own it. In the Ozarks, which is like as hillbilly as you can get, right? We're talking ma and pa kettle. So I understand country and western. I understand country people. I understand farms. I understand living with them. Okay, and I consider them my people. But they're like foreign. They're like an alien. I mean, the way they think is so alien to me. You know, it's all about them. And it's like they don't even want to be part of America. You know, their America is spelled AMERIKKA. That's their America. So, you know, I'm thinking about this morning, and I'm like, well, is there something to it, you know? And there is. As it turns out, there is. So, I'll be looking into this a little bit more, probably a new segment, because I don't want to tie up my listeners with this right now until I've had time to look through this. But basically, I've got a number of well, let's watch this real quick.
Over the last few years, we've witnessed the rise of two disturbing phenomena in the United States. One, the rise of mass shootings. Just 1 year ago in Las Vegas, the deadliest in modern history, 58 people were mercilessly gunned down from a hotel window, with hundreds left injured. The conversation of gun control occupies a few days of media space and then goes away until the next mass shooting.
At least 58 people.
More than 20 people are dead.
Shooting rampage into Hama County.
And has gone on a killing spree.
At least 17 people have been killed.
The shooter has on body armor.
Gunman opened fire at a Waffle House.
He used his dad's shotgun.
There are multiple fatalities.
At a video game tournament.
3 victims killed.
Bakersfield tonight following a shooting spree.
3 people have been killed in that mass shooting at a Kroger grocery store.
12 people who have been shot.
Shooting at a yoga studio.
Killing at least 12 people.
If that weren't terrifying enough, this coincides with the resurgence of the neo-Nazi and white supremacist movement, itself heavily armed and calling for violence. Sometimes the two trends overlap. But America's addiction to guns, the mass shooting epidemic, and the burgeoning armed right wing are much more deeply connected than is being acknowledged. And if either threat is to be solved or even diminished, there must be an honest analysis of U.S. history and culture. So I met with scholar Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, who just wrote a new book, Loaded, A Disarming History of the Second Amendment, to find out how we got here, or if we've always been this way. So before we get into the history, Roxanne, as we sit down for this interview, there have been 3 far right-wing attacks just in the last week. We had a white supremacist shooting 2 black Americans at a Kroger store. Then we had the pipe bombs sent to prominent Democrats, and of course, just yesterday, this horrific shooting at the synagogue that left 11 people murdered. Of course, there have also been many more hate crimes as of late, and an increase under the Trump administration. What is your reaction to this wave of violence?
Well, it does seem like it's accelerated, the ideological ones. You can say before we had clearly, some problematic people like Cho at Virginia Tech, the young man who was at Sandy Hook. There seems to be more ideological right-wing nationalism that has a platform now with Trump. He uses their code words, their language, including the okay thing and the anti-Semitic globalism and attacking Soros. And this is just, just the code. So I think in the general public, we think it's stupid or we think it's wrong or even right-wing, but we don't necessarily jump to saying that's hate language. But the people who are in these white nationalist organizations, they of course know and they applaud,
Okay, I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Did he endorse me?
Okay, I mean, I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him.
They have a word. It sort of became old-fashioned. It's called a nationalist. And I say, really, we're not supposed to use that word. You know what I am? I'm a nationalist, okay?
They'll go to a person holding a sign who gets paid by Soros or somebody.
Okay, so I'm just getting the impression that the premise of this whole video that I'm doing right now is correct. And that's that both Las Vegas and this borderline bar and grill, what's being called the Thousand Oaks shooting, are revenge attacks by basically people on my side. So they hear about all these right-wing nut jobs doing all these killings, and just like with Timothy McVeigh, right? Timothy McVeigh said, "I'm a soldier," and he said, innocent civilians, collateral damage are acceptable, and he said that he didn't mind dying for what he did and all that kind of stuff. All the kind of things a soldier, say, going into World War II accepts, right? Going into Vietnam, going into Cuba. Yeah, we did, but in a different way. So, in his case, a soldier. In the Las Vegas shooting, a rich guy, who could afford massive weaponry, really, is what it came down to, is why 50 people died that day, and all in revenge for kind of in revenge for me, right? I'm being thrown in jail because I talked about, I think I talked about it just about the same time, and then I was convicted at the same time of the, as far as I know, these are the only two revenge shootings, and that it's almost like they're happening because of me. I can see why the jury's just so angry about me, because there's definitely connection. People like me are complaining about what they're doing, but I'm not complaining I've never complained about the attacks on people like Charlotte and all these mass shootings by right-wing nut jobs. Never really. That's not my thing, right? I don't worry, or I do worry about it, but I don't really talk about it. What I'm talking about is the way the right wing control, and it's not the right wing, it's kind of the in between, right? But the way they control the system and the way they use the system to kill people. I mean, when you take away somebody's medicine through the for-profit healthcare system, or one of my pieces not too long ago talked about how all the depression and all the desperation and everything, how it kills people. So by making people scared to death they're going to get fired because they're late for work, or something like that, anything like that, okay, could lead to a traffic accident and people die. People commit suicide because of money. They think that just because they're not going to be able to pay their rent this month, or who knows, but it's massive, right? And the deaths that occur from it are massive. And do I blame conservatives? Yeah, I do. I think that it's very much a conservative, that's their venue, you know? I mean, that's where they're... Sorry, I'm cooking a little bit here. So, so yeah, you know, I blame them, and then nobody's listening to me, so it's not like... And certainly when I'm driving down New Circle Road trying to get to the food stamp place, which they moved without telling anybody, nobody's listening to me, and I thought I was on hold, so I didn't think anybody was listening to me at all. But as far as, do I care if anybody hears about what I'm talking about? No, I don't mind. I never say anything, and if I do say something that I shouldn't have said, I'm more than happy to apologize. And as a matter of fact, as I've reiterated many times, I'm happy when people point out and convince me that I've done something wrong, because it makes me a better person. But throwing me in jail for it doesn't. And besides, I didn't say anything wrong, you know? In my, and I'll do my next piece. I'll go find the recording of me actually, what I said that they threw me in jail for. Now, they're claiming that they threw me in jail for talking about war, and that's utter nonsense, because I'm talking about them warring upon me and people like me. I'm not talking about going to war against them. Well, I'm discussing whether or not I and other people should go to war against them or not. But I'm not even to that point yet where I'm saying we should. I'm even talking about why we shouldn't. As a matter of fact, I'm completely against it. And for the main reason is that we'd lose. I mean, we don't have guns to go up, because they can mobilize the local police, the military, you know, Kent State, 4 dead in Ohio. They can mobilize all kinds of against us, and we can't do that. We can't even protect protesters, you know. I mean, you've seen thousands of pictures of cops just beating the shit out of it. And when do you ever see a cop getting beat up, you know, in that whole thing, or shot when they're shooting at us? You don't. So I've never advocated at this time. What I've talked about is, well, when, you know, 200 million Americans march in the streets and they're saying, this is it. You know, you either do something or we're going to do more than just march. You know, then I would say, yeah. You know, if there's that many Americans wanting change in this country, and the establishment, a small group of these, I'm coming to find out, country and western fans, you know, if they're all that stands in between us and a different kind of America, and if it at that point, if our democracy has been stolen from us, if our justice system has been stolen from us, our economic system has been stolen from us, you know, generally I would never advocate, and I don't even think you could call it overthrowing the American government, because what kind of American government doesn't represent its people? Well, I guess the one we got. Look, I hate to see war. I spent 4.5 years in Beirut. In the last 2 years of it, 73 and then again in 75, and everything in between was pretty rough. And I saw a lot of things. I would never advocate going to war unless, you know, it's just like with fighting. You know, I don't advocate fighting unless somebody attacks me. You know, self-defense. Well, in this case, it would be the people defending themselves against the what's just becoming an increasingly oppressive regime, the country and western regime. You know, I'm surprised. I'm surrounded by these people. I just moved to a part of Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm surrounded by cops. There's just cops all down my street, fire department. I'm finding out that the economic system is rigged very much in the favor of these same people that are under attack. And is that what it all comes down to? Is it just people fighting over money? You know, who can own an Xbox, who can eat the best food, drink the best water, have the nicest house, you know, not have to rent, not have to give up most of your money that you have coming in every month. I mean, why don't we look at income in terms of disposable income? Because isn't that really what it comes down to? People who own a house and they don't have those burdens. Okay, now I am getting off the subject. So you know, this is an interesting phenomenon. The Thousand Oaks shooting, something that I never really figured out until I guess a couple weeks ago. I started thinking about it.
Well, hundreds of people gathered last night for a candlelight video.
You know, and everybody feels sorry for these people. I feel sorry for anybody who was gunned down in cold blood. But at the same time, are we talking about a revenge shooting for all the murder, torture, death, and destruction, all the oppression, the fear, and the harassment? So, while you feel sorry for them as people, because who knows even what they believe. I mean, when I talk to country and western people, they agree with me about almost everything. They agree that as far as when it comes to them, that there's a lot of oppression, there's a lot of not caring about people who, I don't know, get unlucky. They call it falling through the cracks. So, but then they don't want to think about black people. They don't want to think about minorities, Hispanics. They don't want to think about the few people, But they do, to a certain extent, try to take care of their own. But what I see is that as they justify not caring about minorities, they also come to justify not caring about people who fall through the cracks, white people who fall through their cracks, and especially outside of their neighborhood, but even inside their neighborhood. So when I'm living out in Ashland, Kentucky, I find out that the little town across from me in Ohio, Ironton, Ohio, has a whole family living in the dugout at the baseball field. I don't know if it was part of the high school or what it was, but there's a whole family living in the dugout. They lost their house, and never heard anything about anybody getting together in the town and doing something about it. I mean, obviously, if you're a community and you know that there's people right down the street from you living in the dugout, I'm laughing, but at the same time, it's horrific, right? I mean, it's really ridiculous. Why isn't there a shelter? Give them a little privacy, a few rooms, for them and their kids, and help them get out of the dugout. Well, I think it's because these country and western music fans have decided that there is a certain amount of acceptable collateral damage. So if we're going to show we're not racist, we're going to allow some white people to suffer the same fate as the black people and the Hispanic people. I know I laugh, and it's not a laughing matter. I laugh because it's horrific. It's really for these people. Can you imagine being an 8-year-old kid and having to talk in the future someday about how your family had to live or you probably would never talk about it, right? You'd probably try to pretend like it never happened. 'Cause how embarrassing, right? How embarrassing. And you know who should be embarrassed? The country and western fans. That they brag so much about what great people they are and how much they care. And yet they're willing to accept this collateral damage just to try to say, well, we're not racist. Now we're against all, liberals, progressives like me, people who care about other people. Now we're against all of you. We're just for ourselves, and we're willing to sacrifice people in our own community just to prove that we're indiscriminate about our oppression.